Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review. And I'm delighted to be joined by two first-time guests who I'm very excited to have on the channel. Charlie Ashby from the Imperial Senate podcast and Clarisse Loughrey, who is a film critic on Fade to Black podcast and many other things. Delighted to have you both on. And first of all, how are we all doing today?
Hello,
Good.
great to be here.
Yes,
Excellent.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to talk about Andor because I want to do it all the time. So it's nice.
Yeah, it is one of those. We're talking Andor. It is our weekly spoiler discussion, and this week we're on season 2, episodes 7 to 9. It's a spoiler discussion, so I'm just going to say it. The Ghorman Massacre episode arc has finally happened. We've all been waiting very patiently for a massacre, which sounds so horrible. I've got so many deep... I think I texted earlier, Charlie, I was speaking before the stream. I was like, is it terrible I rewatched this episode earlier, like enjoying eating a dinner? Like, does that make me a bad person? I don't know. But it's pretty special, and we're going to be talking about all of that. So people at home, please do comment your thoughts with Andor. If you're watching live, if you're not watching live, leave a comment. We'll reply to those. We're going to be getting into all 3 episodes from this arc, talking about all the major moments, revelations, deaths, revivals, reprogrammings, I guess we can say too. So it is a very special episode. The penultimate episodes of Andor, which is also really sad to say because it's like just got going again and it's gone. So we've got one more lovely spoiler discussion left. But before I really get into this both, I'd like to, first time having you both on the channel, I'd like to put you both on the spots.
Oh.
I don't want to do something boring and ask what your favorite Star Wars character is, because everyone's going to have different answers. But your favorite Andor story arc so far, that might work better.
Including this one, or this...
Go for it if it includes this one, or maybe a second one if it includes this one. Mine's this one, sorry.
So between, I think it's probably either this one or you got to go with Narkina, right? You got to go with Narkina 5 because that was just such a... That was one of those like arcs where when I went into it, I was expecting it to probably be my least favorite because I thought, this is sort of down to earth, like boxed in sort of arcs. We're not going to see a lot from Andor, and then the way they just blew that whole thing open, talked about the prison system, the way that it's just like Tony Gilroy has mentioned before, like this show is just his thesis on revolution. Like he just wanted to talk about, like he's just a nerd who likes history, and then he was given this opportunity to talk about it and present it in a way which happens to be in Star Wars. And so the way that he breaks down and drills into the idea of like imperialism and how it affects different aspects of society, not just the fact that there's a police state or they take over planets, but it's also like the prison systems we have and how we demonize certain people and bring them in and make them build our weapons, which is why I know like the Death Star reveal was a sort of a bit of a... Some people didn't like that, but I actually really enjoyed it because it just goes to the show like how far these systems do push people. They force the very people that they aim to destroy with their weapons to build them.
Am I choosing like episode? Because I think my favorite arc is just like the Cyril character arc.
Okay. No, talk about Cyril. We'll be talking about him a lot as well.
I just feel like we don't tend to see a lot of characters written the way that he is, and he's so believable because I think, if we're applying Star Wars as like a real world parallel, none of us are really meeting Darth Vader or like Leia, but I feel like we're all meeting Cyrils. We know Cyrils. We are surrounded by Cyrils, and this way that he fluctuates throughout, especially throughout season 2, of this idea that he is immersed in the propaganda, but not fully. He's like on the phone with his mom going, stop watching the Imperial news. And yet he's so invested in his own progress and his own standing and in his own wanting of power, his slice of the pie, that he is sort of so willing to just shed all of whatever morality that might be left inside of Cyril, very much gone by the end of his story arc. But yeah, I just think he's one of the most interesting. He's not like my favorite Star Wars character because he's a freak, but like I feel like he's one of the most interesting Star Wars characters to me, because I think I have at least spent so much of these 2 seasons going, oh, maybe he'll have his awakening, like maybe last minute. Maybe there's just like that little bit left inside of him that will be like, okay, maybe I should stop doing this because this is insane and extremely fascist. But I guess we saw how that turned out now. So, oh wow.
He's definitely like one of those interesting characters because I think he's a good reminder that a lot of these people, these like fascist folk out there who, it's easier just to think that people don't have morals and empathy or like stuff deep down. I think sometimes it's worse when they do have those morals and empathy deep down. Like they slightly know like what they're doing is wrong, but their ego and their like need for power or just attention seeking just outdoes it. That last moment with him, like before he attacks Cassian, and he's like, he knows it's like a knife's edge. He could either go off and help the Ghormans, or he could do something stupid and reckless and just go for his own personal gain. And he goes for that. And I think that's a case with a lot of real world analogies, is that a lot of these people just want what improves their life as opposed to doing what's right.
Go back to his beginning. Yeah. Sorry, he's the office sycophant. We've all worked with them. Like, he's there to grass everyone else up to get his own way. And you just see that spiral and grow and grow. And oh god, there's so much to talk about. I think he's one of the most unique Star Wars characters. And I'll be totally honest, I don't think we'll ever get a character written probably not as compelling as him, because that's unfair to say it couldn't be done again. But as you said, someone real, someone that's on the ground, that's not a Darth Vader, that is a normal person that is just in this story. And even with today's episode, like when he walks past Cassian and the camera, and I was sat there like, oh my word, like they almost had the meeting. And obviously we get it later on. He's a fascinating one, and he has had one of the clear and concise characters. Even the relationship with his mother is one of the most interesting things I've seen in a Star Wars. We've got a lot of mother's-son connections in Star Wars. Kind of get Shmi and Anakin, the loving mother storyline, Padme with her one moment with Luke, but Cyril and his mom is, you kind of feel bad for her at the end, but she's a terrible person as well. And she sort of not smiles, but she'd wear the badge of honor that he has died for the Empire. That she'd wear that should be one of them, like, my son was a hero. She'll never know about, well, he didn't exactly have a moral heroic ending, but she won't know about him walking out of the Empire moments before disaster. Probably going out in not the most ridiculous way possible, because that's incredibly unfair, but his own fault is the way he goes out. His consequences of his actions. And we've got a quick comment by Carl. I love we're getting on the Cyril hype. We haven't even started like the episode arcs. We're on Cyril, which is amazing. His character arc seems to be based around the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Everything he did was the right reason in his mind that ultimately led to his death. Yeah, love that as well. And with the comments, we do have Carl, long-time subscriber. Lovely to get Carl on Talking Star Wars as always. And we've got the legendary Dave returning. So the best Star Wars ever. It's that simple. Good evening. I think Dave was the first to message me, Dave or Sam. And I think one of the messages, it was Sam, was like, heavy breathing, and I've only seen episode 2, and I was sat there like, I've got 8 more hours of work, and I've got to watch them back to back to back before the football. Like, I was on it yesterday.
It was worse for me. I had gone to bed the night previously at about 8 o'clock, because I was just completely like out of it, just tired. Woke up at 3 a.m. and was like, well, usually what I do is I watch 1 episode before I go to work. So what I'll do is I'll get it in now, and then maybe I might watch 2 so before I go to work. So anyway, it cuts to 5 a.m. and I've watched all 3. And I'm like, oh, now I'm just depressed and I have to get ready for work. But I just couldn't help it. It's just so good. You couldn't not watch all 3. And I think that says a lot about the way that they've done this series, like as opposed to series 1, like the 3 arc year jumps have been really interesting to me.
I mean, just a question to you both, seeing it's the first time I've had you on for this season. We're on the 3rd episode arc now. For me, every episode arc has felt like a season finale, that you didn't need the context before, but every week it's like, great, I've just had this amazing 2-hour experience with the show that's continuously impressing me. And it feels like it's resolved character and story set up 2 hours ago. And now we're going to jump forward a year, and it feels like life's gone on in the correct way. But we haven't lost enough to not know the story of what's continuing. Does that sound weird to say? And I kind of wondered if that's your thoughts of the season so far too.
I mean, they feel like movies, and that the gaps between the 3 episodes are sort of the gaps you have between sequels, where you have kind of an understanding that, yeah, time has passed, certain things have changed, but we're still going to be picking up some of the old threads and also introducing new threads that will be concluded by the time this 3 episode run has ended. So yeah, I feel like they are structured exactly like movies. I mean, obviously they have a little bit more of a 3-act like a stricter 3-act structure because they have to be 3 episodes, but I'm pretty sure you could slam those together and it would just be like a what is it, 4? Sorry, I watched all of these.
Quadrilogy.
Quadrilogy, right? Yes.
Yeah. I remember the Terminator DVD box set back in the day. The Terminator quadrilogy. I don't know what a quadrilogy is, but now I know it through Terminator. Thank you, James Cameron. Now I don't know how many there are now, but every single one is the spiritual successor to Terminator 2, as they say at every marketing campaign.
Yes.
But let's get into some. So we're into BBY now. 1 year has passed. I've got a question for you both. This is the saddest Star Wars minute thing. The episodes say BBY2. Now, I'm not here to talk calendars. There are many amazing Star Wars channels that do canon breakdown. Star Wars Explained always jumps to mind. Alex and Molly. I just call it the number, then BBY or ABY. Am I wrong, or does it just not matter? Am I thinking too much into it?
I don't think it matters too much.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, it'd be like if it said like AD 2025, or is it 2025 AD? Not that we use AD, but do you see what I mean? Like, it's the placement doesn't matter, but is there a right and a wrong?
Yeah, but within canon, have they decided that's how it is? Because why did we decide it's blah blah AD and not AD blah blah?
I think it's like, well, that's like it's the same in universe as out universe. It's just there's different calendar systems. Like Star Wars is different, as like multiple different calendar systems. There's the fall calendar, which is like 6 number, like it's like 211276, also known as 2 BBY. It's like the reason why it's BBY is because it sounds cooler, right? It's like before the Battle of Yavin. That's a big event, so let's just pick that. I just love the way that Tony Gilroy talks about, like, because he did an interview. I can't remember who it was with, but he did an interview where someone asked him, "Does having like canon events, is that a hindrance towards you?" And he was like, "No, it's the opposite. Like, it's really helpful because the way he described it, I love it so much. He says they're like calendar. It's a calendar. So there's calendar events where like this is going to happen, and this is going to drop. So it's good to shift around the story." And I think that's what the arcs have been really feeling like as well. It feels like a calendar event, each arc. Like you're just diving into this year. That's the big events of that year. It's like a Wikipedia page. Like it doesn't list every single day, otherwise you'd be there all day. It's these core aspects of Cassian's life. So the way they phrase it, I feel like I think it could be either way. Maybe it's like the way we read dates versus where Americans use dates.
Good point.
Yeah. Will they ever do they should do BGAG before the birth of Grogu, because he's like Grogu's like Jesus, right?
Well, he's like he's 50 in The Mandalorian, which means he would.
He's like Anakin's age, isn't he?
He's older than Anakin, I think.
Yeah, but I don't know what Grogu's gonna end up doing, but I feel like there should be a new calendar about the birth of Grogu. I've seen too many meme portraits where he's baby Jesus and is the Virgin Mary. So I feel like there's nothing inside the Star Wars canon that suggests Grogu is Jesus. It's
There's no AG in my mind because there'll be no after Grogu. Can't be doing that.
He will be the new narrator. the one day it'll be him and R2D2 on the horizon trading stories, and the prophecy will come into fruition.
Who will voice him though? Because we've got obviously baby Jabba's son Rotter is going to be played by Jeremy Allen White, which is the best casting of all time.
Yes.
So I saw the leaked trailer. I'm allowed to say that's fine. I wasn't at Celebration, not this year. Charlie, you were in the room.
I was.
There is a glimpse of. He ends the trailer. He is the glimpse, and it's the back of him. Like, who'd have thought in the year 2025, like, we're gonna hype up a hut with their ears? But
not a hut. How dare you? It's Jabba the Hutt's son. Right, it's stinky.
We've had Cousin in Andor from the Bear.
Yeah,
we basically need to find roles for the whole Bear cast.
He's also in the trailer. He's doing like a bare knuckle fight. Like he's like a fighter, like some seedy under. He's like ripped.
Is this great? 100 men versus one hut.
This isn't a joke. This is in the trailer. I love it.
Ripped.
He looks like.
Where are the abs? They're slugs.
He's still be. Oh, I've got to find an image now.
I'm trying to picture it in my mind. I guess it's like it's like a very small six pack right in the central slug area.
Yes.
Would you have? Or does it run all the way down if they're a slug?
I don't know. It just
it would be like a 60-pack.
Oh, you can't really see because of my background, but he looks kind of like ripped a little bit.
I see what you mean. There's wrinkles there that could be muscles.
No, he's ripped.
That's the slug. I mean, imagine Tony Gilroy's Jabba the Hutt speech should be able to do. That would be quite something. And this is the beauty of Star Wars. We're going to get one episode talking about massacres, and then in a year's time, we're going to be talking Mandalorian, Grogu, because it will be May 2026, presuming they don't delay it. I won't lie. I'm still a bit not nervous. I got very accustomed to the December release dates, and I love the December release dates. And there's also an Avengers film out next May. So, although Star Wars is wrapped and Avengers has just started. But
but does that Avengers film have Pedro Pascal? Oh wait, yes, it does. Never mind.
Although for people that do care, Alan Cumming has revealed something he shouldn't have about the film and someone he'll be fighting. So if anyone's curious, you can find that out.
Is it Batroc the Leaper? Or did he die? I can't remember.
You know what? I really want to ask. I was going to say who's everyone's favorite Glup Shittos when I introduced you, and
I was having mine.
Is it Ben Quadranaris?
It's not Ben Quadranaris. He's like the go-to Glup Shitto. That's like mainstream. No, my yeah, of course he is. He's like out of Glup Shittos, he's like one of the mainstream picks.
That's a shame.
Is he yours?
I like Rats Tyrell. No, mine's Rats Tyrell.
Rats Tyrell. Yeah, he's a bit better. My favorite Glup Shitto is the MD droid from Polis Massa. Who tells Obi-Wan about there's the Uber ones, and then there's the main MD himself, who I feel like gets unfairly criticized for his role in the death of Padme Amidala.
I'm trying not to laugh because when we saw Revenge of the Sith at the cinema recently, it's just she's lost the will to live, and without getting depressing, like as I've got older, I think that's real, you know.
Like, it is real. Well, not only is it real, George, I'm glad you let me have this chance to speak out for this poor doctor. He's been unfairly maligned for 20 years. He keeps getting shit on. Like, these droids don't do anything. This droid, okay, he's a medical professional. He does this every day of his life. This random monk, a politician, a little green dude, comes out with a pregnant woman who's clearly like been injured. She smells of lava, which is weird. She's pregnant, and they're like, "Oh yeah, when's the baby coming out or whatever?" And the baby's like, "She's got twins. Where have you been going to the hospital?" Like, the Coruscant are terrible. Coruscant are the real terrible ones. They couldn't figure out she had twins, which is ridiculous. This poor droid is doing his best. They didn't mention the fact that she'd just been choked about 20 minutes earlier by her husband. You know, so I feel like he's doing his best. He did his best. You know, I don't like this unfair droid hatred.
And they did deliver both twins alive and well
successfully. So I'd say that's what 2/3 success rate. That's all right.
Is this the next Tony Gilroy project? He's going to do like
Oh,
a ER with the medical
please.
droids.
I'd love to write that.
He'd
Droid
do
MD.
he'd do like the history of like medical droids, and it'd be a really thrilling series as well. They'd have like some deranged. I don't know what you call them. What would you call people that build robots in Star Wars? Newt Gunray Co. I don't know, but
Gunray
that's
Co.
an interesting one.
That's a good film.
That's a great name for a sick. I was in York last week. Sorry to this is really digressing. I wanted to send you a photo, but I should have. I got to see Gary Oldman on stage, which was incredible. That's a separate conversation. But I was walking past a restaurant, going back to the hotel. My hands are full. There's a Asian restaurant, as it was titled, just the title, Viceroy. And I wanted to take a photo and send it to you to say that Gunray survived. That's not me saying he's Asian.
Yeah.
That's going off what was been spoken about of his role for 25 years. But
he was the viceroy of the Trade Federation. You know, sometimes you just gotta. You may have settled down.
It looked very nice, but I had my hands full of a lot of stuff, and I need to get back to the hotel because I was very tired. It was very hot as well. Sorry, we've really detracted from Andor. Clarisse,
Anyway, back to the massacre.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about a Glup Shitto, or do you talk Andor?
Well, I guess maybe I'm blanking. DJ Rex, maybe.
Yeah.
But if not, because they're in Andor, the Two Tubes twins. I love them so much, and I'm like sort of attracted to them.
We've talked about this.
They're kind of hot. I don't know what to say. That might hear me out. I don't know if that's my Glup Shitto.
You got Edro, and then you've got Ben Thick with the double C.
The Two Tubes twins,
and
also they can talk to each other in their minds. It's cool. They're like X-Men.
It's when Saul Guerrero goes in, and he's basically like, he betrayed you, and they just all absolutely pipe up. You know what? We didn't get Forrest Whitaker in this episode arc, which is a conversation worth having. And I unfortunately it was the 10th anniversary of the channel this week. I unfortunately did a Forrest Whitaker impression. It sounded great, but it just gets a bit addictive doing a Saul Guerrero voice at the moment. So I'm gonna have to.
It is good. It is good. I have to admit, I keep doing it.
It's the quotes he comes out with are it's unbelievable. But that honestly, I wanted to just tweet like it's Monday morning. I just wanted to do the photo of Willman with the gas mask off because that's how I felt when I woke up. But Willman, what a segue. Willman starting off the episode arc is arriving back on Yavin 4. We think gas drug free. He looks like he's cleaned up his acts. He has been working with Luthen. And we know we're going to get to Ghorman, but we'll talk about Yavin 4 very briefly. Obviously, 2 years on from the first episode arc of the season, the Rebel base is restored. It is on Yavin 4. We kind of know we'd get there. I love that it wasn't just this. This sounds really disrespectful. The unfortunate thing about not having 5 seasons of Andor is we would get like an origin for everything ever, and it would be remarkable if they ever did it. But you just know we'd have like a 6-episode half season on like building the Rebel base. And I like that it's kind of established, but we get a little bit more insight into like rankings. General Draven returns. They've got like a little Ewok village going on with like living spaces, which I thought was really cool. We got the sound effects from the original films, which I also loved. What did you guys both think about being back on Yavin? Again, it felt like a year had passed. There's friction with Andor and Luthen, which is a follow-up from last week. But again, you don't need those gaps filled in. I don't need to know why they fell out. There was enough that happened the episodes before for the trust to be gone, for Andor to have moved on with Bix. I'm just curious what you both thought.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Cassian that had fallen out with him, but Vel as well.
Yeah.
So it's like all of these people had pretty much cut ties, apart from Claire, who is my bae. If you're out there, Claire, Marky, much love. Like she's the only one who's like standing by him still, really. And it was interesting, like the needs, the archaic actions of going out there and attacking people and setting up this rebellion, as opposed to actually coming together now and being more structured, was just really fascinating to see. He said that the Yavin base, like the bunks and stuff where they've like set up, is pretty great. Like, living crisis is terrible at the moment. If I wouldn't mind having like a little Yavin hut just to chill at, cheaper accommodation. So yeah, I thought it was really great to see that. Like you said, I'm glad that we didn't have like a 6 episode arc of them building Yavin. It's just there, like you just see the gradual changes, and I feel like that says more about them coming together than it would be physically seeing it. It's really great that they introduced that. I'm just so hyped to see the place. Like the screens like behind me, they're in there being worked on, and all these different groups. And it's just really fascinating to think about where they've come from, their backstories. You don't see them. There's like the doctor that works on the droid at the end. It's like, what's his backstory? They'll never say, but you get to explore it in your own head, which is always fun.
I think, I guess for me, like, I also don't, I feel like Yavin, you can kind of assume how that came together. And I think narratively it plays such an interesting role because to me, Andor is all about the mechanics of rebellion, which I think is what's very cool about it. Because, I think we do have a lot of, sort of, I guess I could call it like mainstream stories that we would say are anti-fascist or about rebellion, about fighting the bad guys. But I think what's so special about Andor is like, it's actually about like, okay, but how do you actually do that? Like, what are the different components that you need? And I feel like having Yavin and really contextualizing it in a way that's never been done before really in Star Wars, of like Yavin is very much like the core, like they're the really organized guys in the center who have, and we can see them building the structures, and it's sort of like, I love having all these characters from Rogue One come in, because there was sort of a bit of like a World War II, like flight squadron attitude to how they talk to each other in that movie. And so you kind of get this very military, that sort of military attitude starting to build at Yavin, which is such a contrast to Luthen, who's like, I'm the anarchist, hello. Me, Luthen, gotta go kill some people. So I like just having Yavin existing in contrast to like Luthen and Saw Gerrera and all these different components, and sort of the show going, okay, well, they all kind of need each other, even though they hate each other. They actually do end up necessary for each other's survival.
Really well said, actually, and especially the Luthen side of it, where Wilman comes in basically saying, don't trust these lot here, like we don't like it here. And where the 3 episodes go, we obviously know that Luthen ends up being somewhat correct by the end of it with what he believes and what he set up. One of the most interesting characters who isn't in the first 2 episodes of this story arc, which I also really liked, because when you get round to meeting him at Coruscant, it's a great moment as part of one of the most intense episodes so far. But we get the news that Dedra Meero is on Ghorman. Things are going bad. We kind of worked out things are going to go bad, and I think what was quite refreshing to me was seeing the characters not bring up. I don't mean in the online context of they brought up season 1, but Ferrix was only a few years ago to these. That was their home. They grew up together. They all lost people due to the Empire based there. And guess what? Dedra Meero ran that. She ran that show. She's responsible for what happened, and this is going to be the revenge mission. And I really enjoyed it for that, because it wasn't, Luthen dangling it on string saying, come to Ghorman. It was, hey, you all want this, so let's get it done. And I like where the rebel stuff, as you mentioned, Chris, with the military side of things, they're talking about, we could have promoted you, you shouldn't be doing this. And General Draven appears, who I loved in Rogue One. We get him back in this. And the beauty of the show is we know the outcome of Rogue One. We're going to build up to that Rogue One. And I like seeing Cassian go, season 1 is essentially, this is how he becomes a rebel. Is it Captain Andor by the time of Rogue One? I can't remember his title.
Yeah.
But season 2 is very much starting to build up toward there's a military side to this game. There's rebel cells, there's roles. It's not just these missions, and you'll get missions from other people. Again, with Rogue One, you get the great speech, we've all killed for the rebellion. And we get to see that a little bit more as well in that 3rd arc, I thought. But it's a great setup to get them off Yavin, get them to Ghorman without jumping the ship too much, which heading into this story arc, we know we're going to go. Just a quick thing I'd love to bring up. The Force healer really caught me off guard. only because I was concentrating so much. When they said there's a Force user here, I saw someone with a bandage, and I was like, wait, is that Kanan? Are we actually going to do this? No, it wasn't the Rebels cast, thankfully. So I wasted 10 seconds rewinding. But we had instead of just the concept of the Force for the first time in Tony Gilroy's Andor, which I thought was done in a, I don't want to say a really interesting way. We know how well he is as a writer. I think to give a monologue to a healer that we have no context of, no knowledge of, I don't want to sit here saying it felt like George Lucas's Star Wars, but it felt like Tony Gilroy understood the Force just off one conversation, one character introduction. Did you both feel that as well?
Yeah, it feels like that scene to me sort of felt like Tony Gilroy going, sort of realizing that the Force hadn't been a part of the story at all until this point, and going, well, God, I need to mention it somehow. But I think using that opportunity to sort of remind people that even though these specific characters, there's no Jedis or Sith in this, like religion or faith or spirituality, however you want to talk about the Force, like is present all the time. And we could have had 100 conversations of all the different characters, how they feel about the Force. Do they believe in it? Do they think it's nonsense? Are they like sensitive to it in whatever definition you want to use? And I think just having that moment to then you can kind of take that and go, well, how does that inform how all the characters make their decisions? Because the thing about the Force is the idea of like trusting in something you don't control, and and I think that makes, for a lot of Star Wars characters, it makes it easier for them to take risks, to like make sacrifices. And so I think just having just like a little small reminder of like, okay, remember that this is probably influencing people's actions to some degree, even if they're not going to be having scenes talking about it constantly. Just think about that and think about how it, because clearly Bix is like a very strong believer and possibly sensitive to it. How is that impacting how she's going to act from this point on, or has acted in the past as well?
And I think, you make a really great point. And I love the sequence, because I think a lot of times, especially with season 1 of Andor, there were a lot of people watching it going, this is how Star Wars should be. The Force is rubbish. Lightsabers are rubbish. They shouldn't be a part of it anymore. And it should be just, and it's like, well, no, like this is what makes the story work, is that it gets to separate from that aspect a little bit. But what I thought Gilroy did so well with the speech is that it could be open-ended, the way he framed it, of like, and because it's touched upon as well by Luthen, like, you were there here, and then you showed up here, and then you showed up here, and it's like, that's weird, right? Like, you're like a beacon, like someone's pushing you into this like destiny. And the way that she frames it is like Cassian's like he's on the like, he has to go through these events and traumas to get to this place where he's on Scarif to help deliver that message to the Death Star, and to help stop the Death Star. And you can read into that as in like a sort of pre-destiny Force, mystical side, or it could be just the fact that that's life, right? Like, that's what happens. We are formed and forged in fire. We go through these events, and he had to have, as a person, had to have gone through all of those events to be the Cassian that we know in Rogue One. Because that's my favorite thing about Star Wars in any story ever, is that, I mean, you go back in time, like, stories always constantly evolve and change. They're a spoken medium. We tell them to people, and then people change bits that they want to add when they retell the story. That's always been the case with Star Wars. I mean, look at the way that the Clone Wars has changed people's viewing of the prequel trilogy, and even aspects of the original trilogy. So actually, like, watching bits of Rogue One back recently, I'm not watching the whole film yet because I want to keep it till after Andor, but just rewatching some sequences, like the scene where Cassian is the sniper on Galen, and you can tell it. He's realizing he's becoming like Luthen, and he's like, "This is not right. Like, this is not where I should be." And that you don't have that obviously the first time around. You have like a different opinion of that scene, but now you get to inform the story again in different ways. So I just really like the way that sort of forced narrative came into it, because again, like it's a nice touch to the idea of the Force and what it means. But I'm a sucker for those, like, you know, what does this mean? Is it predestiny, or is it just this person who's like a decent person? Because even in season 1, like Marva mentions the fact that, you know, she always knew Cassian was ready. She always knew that he would be ready to fight against the Empire and create this world. Now, even if it wasn't for him, then there would be no Star Wars, right? So
yeah,
it's crazy.
I love that sequence as well. That there's this really offhand comment the lady makes where she's like, not like, oh, it's so amazing to, you know, feel you, but it's just like, these guys are coming to me every day. And I love this idea that, you know, not in a prophecy, but some of these people are probably going to from an attachment issue to not like G them or make them feel better, but some will maybe like have an addiction, whereas he doesn't want that discussion. He doesn't want her impacting him talking about destiny, and we know where it goes with Bix later on in the same arc. Her reading of that is, I need to leave him for him to be the person we know he is going to be. And I really enjoyed that. We've got Dave in the comments who's put, it was nice to get some mention of the Force, just ties us more to the bigger story without having to have a Jedi or be pushed at you. Just a gentle reminder it's out there. And there's that great Tony Gilroy comment recently where, you know, they said, oh yeah, it's Darth Vader in Andor, because in the trailer Dedra's just pulling her cuff. He's like, no, I've written Darth Vader. He's very limited. And I was like, yeah, like, that's it. It doesn't need to be in the series. Don't want it to be in the series, but
well, as you know, nobody in real life can choke unless Darth Vader's involved.
Oh, we didn't get Ben Mendelsohn in these episodes, which I've just clocked as well.
No sassy Krennic.
I listen. I will get into Krennic hype mode probably next week because I'm sure he'll be all over it. But Krennic has become like, obviously he's not a Glup Shitter, but I have like secondary character villains that I become obsessed with. I have Lucius Malfoy and Krennic as like these two, and I don't know what it is about them. They're like,
they're both
detestable.
Fruity. They're both a little fruity.
There's something about them where it's like, I'd go out for a drink with you. Like, I reckon you'd be fun on a night out. Probably a bit too unhinged, and I can't really get massively drunk because you'll do something to someone. But I reckon you're someone I'd invite on the show. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But Krennic's on that territory of every second he's going to get on screen, I'm delighted. Like, I don't cheer at like events or TV or film and stuff. I've done it a few times before, but if Krennic, sorry, Karen.
No, it's great to watch Krennic thrive because it makes the scenes of him in Rogue One even better when he's like pissing himself, like worried, because he's so gleeful in the fact he's like, this project I've been working on for 20 years, it's going to be incredible. The Emperor loves me, and you know, it's sicko like fascist need for approval from Daddy Palpatine. Sorry,
and he gets demoted on day zero.
Gets demoted on day zero by the person who he hates the most, and then it's like just constantly being dragged apart. It gets choked out by the mystical man
in a lava planet.
Which, to be fair, like I understood Anakin in that moment because he wakes him up from his bath. You know, it's annoying, and he has to go talk to him about bloody mining disasters. Which also, I was like, is that like a little nod towards the Ghorman arc as well? Like the whole mining disaster stuff. Like, do you think they keep using that in their press?
I'm really curious by this because the lack of Krennic, it's almost complimentary that his fingerprints are all over it. Like it's his plan, it's his idea. We've seen him in the mountains in episode 1.
Well, he's mentioned.
Yeah,
he's mentioned he's an Edu, which is the place we see in Rogue One, which is the scientific, the Tarkin people. Yeah, they're trying to make synthetic, was it calcite, the mineral from Ghorman. So that's what he's been up to for a year, trying to make some, you know, carbon from it. Also, I know this was an episode like Arc 1 or something, but when we watched episode 1 at Celebration, and they talked about how the Emperor's like main agenda is unlimited power, the laugh I let out was incredible. Like he's making puns. Like it's like perfect. It's like the most perfect. Like, oh, I loved it.
I love Ben Mendelsohn. I genuinely think, in a different conversation, I feel like, I don't want to say he's underrated. I think he's underappreciated, and I think he has a cult following from the right people. But I think he's an actor that not enough people have seen some of his dramatic roles. But at the same time, he just loves the projects he's in. He loves to be in Star Wars. He's absolutely loves so many of the roles he's been in before, and he's an absolute legend. And I'll talk about him. Oh god, it's really cringy. Season 1, I used to like a critic watch in the desperation that he'd rock up in a cameo. I'm so glad he never did, because it wouldn't have worked for season 1. But the fact he's brought back as the season 2 antagonist, I think, is again credit to the writing, that no role is wasted, no scene is wasted. Like, every single person that we see has a place in this. And the Ghorman massacre, it's kind of crazy, because we get to Ghorman, it's almost the headline for the season. That I know, Clarisse, you've seen the last 3 episodes, but next week feels like an epilogue whilst being the Rogue One prologue, without me even having seen it, because I think it will be the last pushed into Rogue One. Whereas season 2 so far has all been about Ghorman. You even go back to season 1, and there's mentions, of Ghorman's lane being shut off, what Mothma's trying to do in the Senate. I won't jump into the massacre, but having the core of the first 2 episodes of this episode arc set there, and then the aftermath, I think gives this arc in particular something quite special that others haven't had. You can look at the first 3 as the reintroduction to these characters, what's gone on in a year, where the story is going to move toward. Season 2 is, let's start bringing the characters, the concept of the rebellion. Let's show the Empire playing chess with themselves. And then this week was, I don't normally write notes for episodes, but I just wrote the episode. It felt like a sense of dread the moment I sat down to watch them. There was just something horrific cooking that we all knew was coming, and I'm not used to that with Star Wars. And it's strange because, psychotic 9-year-old George was buzzing during Revenge of the Sith when Mace Windu got killed, because he knew that all the Jedi about to start getting killed. Because Hayden Christensen was very cool. I had short hair. I went into my hair just like, I want his hair, and he's like, you can't, because you've got short hair, it wouldn't work. So I was a bit gutted that I couldn't get Hayden to cut age 9. Never growing my hair that long, never going to be able to. Well, I can, I just don't want to. Sorry. But this week, how do we feel with the Ghorman mission that the characters are put into the place to execute Dedra? It feels like the right mission, but at the same time, I don't want to call it the unfortunate coincidence. Not talking about, right place, wrong time, but everything had led to the moment of that day. That was when the Empire were deciding, okay, we're gonna do this now. It doesn't need to have a special celebration day internally in Star Wars. It felt fitting that there are rumors going around. Dedra's been spotted. This is our mission now. I guess this leans more into episode 7, but the tension leading into the massacre episode, did you both feel that? It's really strange to talk about, because although it's 2 separate episodes, it feels like one long one together.
Well, I think because you were talking about Krennic sort of being the force behind all of this, but I would argue it's actually Dedra, because she has that idea. I'm sorry, I don't remember. In one of the first 3 episodes, she takes Krennic aside, right, and says, look, what you really need to be doing is not propaganda. You need to be setting it up so that the rebels on Ghorman do the wrong thing. They need to make one mistake, and that's what we profit off. And that's basically what the Ghorman massacre is the Empire kind of deliberately building up this protest that they can then have turn into the massacre, and then they can use the propaganda to go, well, they started it, when obviously the Empire started it. All of this, I think, comes from, so I feel like I've been feeling the dread since she said that because when she said that in that one episode, I was like, okay, well, I see exactly where this is going now. That idea is going to turn into what the Ghorman massacre is, because that's exactly what she was talking about when she was having that conversation with Krennic. But also, definitely, I think the way that the 2 episodes were shot is so incredibly done, because it's just horrific. It's just really horrific to watch, because I think, despite the fact it's so clearly Star Wars and everything is very Star Wars within it, it feels so realistic, and the way that it builds feels so realistic to every sort of real world parallel you can think of. And I was thinking while watching, I was like, God, I am scared of stormtroopers finally, because they're such a like, you know, and it's not Star Wars' fault. It's just because like Star Wars is a huge pop culture thing. People dress up as stormtroopers. Like, it's sort of like they sort of became unscary because they're toys and action figures and cosplay. Although once a stormtrooper did hit on me and I was very scared. Then I was like, oh yeah, stormtroopers are space fascists. That's actually really scary. Don't, if you're in a stormtrooper costume, don't like hit on people. That's my one word of advice. But yeah, like I think seeing them when they're in that formation on the stairs and like knowing what's about to happen, I was like, I've never seen stormtroopers actually depicted like that to such a frightening degree. They've been scary in the past, but like this level of scary I've never seen before.
You know what? It's funny you said that because I felt the exact same way. And I think it's easy to go into these like shows and films and it's like, oh yeah, the stormtroopers, they always miss, they're not a bit much of a threat. And that is true. Like, you know, it's a joke. But I think as someone who like studies history and loves history and looks at all these like different historical like events, and you know, sadly, a lot of, like you said, a lot of events that are happening today were firmly in my mind while watching this. And even if we talk about like the UK, for example, like, you know, the police look silly, right? Like in real life, like police, the uniforms are silly. They got the little jackets and stuff. Or even like in the 60s, had the little stupid bobby hats. And you can, from a distance, you'll be like, oh, well, it's the funny, like, sort of, you know, they're not a bit much of a threat. But when you're in that situation where they're like ganging up against you, they got the riot shield, that's when it changes, right? That's when the fascist aspect and imperialism kicks in. It's like it doesn't really matter what they look like because like the power and the physical display they have over you is in full force, and that's what you saw with the stormtroopers, and that's why they're scary. It's because they could miss all they want, but it doesn't matter because they've got full control of that area. It's a horrific situation as well. They trick them into thinking that they're opening up the plaza, which in itself is a memorial. The fact that Grand Moff Tarkin landed a bloody cruiser on them. So it's like it's like a horrific memorial that they built a massive structure over, and now they're opening up to let them in. They're forcing them in, and it's the most horrific. It was just like you said, like the whole build up was just so tension ridden, and the way that I can't remember the name of the person who's doing the music for this season. Is it Brandon someone?
Oh, it is. Let me quickly bring it back up because I know he's covered for Nicholas Britell.
Yeah.
Bear with me.
Brandon Roberts, I believe.
That's it.
Brandon Roberts. Okay, yeah. He described it on, I don't know if you've been watching, they've been doing these like mini like behind the scene videos called Andor Declassified, where like Gilroy talks about stuff and like they have like the behind the scenes of the costumes and the actors about, like they had Genevieve talk about the speech and stuff like that. But Brandon Roberts was talking about how they came up with like the doom gongs, which are like this slow like dong dong, like purposefully done, like to build up dread, and it was just so well done, and you just felt so much fear and horror, and it was just, yeah, I had a lot of thoughts going in my head during these episodes, which made it more emotional. It's like, again, real world examples. This is what imperialism is. It isn't just stormtroopers attacking people. It is premeditated warfare. It's premeditated propaganda. It's building up a story against people. It is creating a narrative that doesn't necessarily exist. People that haven't done anything other than want to live, and making excuses for that, making excuses for your evil behavior or murder just to gain what you think you can just take. And that's like Gilroy says, it's a timeless story, sadly, and that actually peace and prosperity is that's the rarer thing throughout history. You know, wars are perpetual and evil keeps reappearing. And we see that in Star Wars. We see it with the First Order. I remember when people were like, "What? Why have they just come back? That's unrealistic." And then think about everything that's happened post 2015. It's like, oh no, it's not. That's the point. You have to keep an eye on these things. And I think, if anything, what the only criticism I have against Andor is that I kind of wish we get to have more types of stories like this for different eras. And I appreciate that Gilroy wants to make this story timeless, so that you don't necessarily have to delve into the Resistance. I don't think he's actively wanting to be like, "Oh, I really want to look at the First Order." But from a personal point of view, I think it would be interesting to see if Gilroy could tackle stuff like the alt-right and how they're getting involved into this classic imperialist tropes and falling into that, classic ways of joining stormtroopers and stuff would be very interesting. But yeah, scary.
It's really well said, because it is, as you said, it's history, past, present, and future. Not to sort of discuss massacres, but I saw a few American followers talking about a Mexico massacre in 1968, which I hadn't heard of, which snipers on the roof going at the students in the crowd below. And we can look at what is happening today over in Palestine, with so many incidents that some come up weeks after they've already happened. And I don't want to say it's scary that a show can do this, because this show was written and filming 2+ years ago. Yet in that 2 years, we are having this happening, and we've had it happen historically. And I love that Tony Gilroy is so vocal about his history side of things, that after the first story arc with what happened at Bix, when he came out and said this is a part and parcel, and if you draw up enough bloodlines historically, you'll probably find out you're a consequence of this too. He doesn't hide from that, and I kind of love it. Not that I need a showrunner to come out defending decisions, like it's not that bit. It's someone being so open to discussing what they're putting on screen. And I don't want to say it's a confidence of it, but I feel as if the product, I don't want to call Star Wars products, but his story is mature. So he's discussing it to his mature audiences, that this is why I'm doing this, this is where it is. And I think the Stormtrooper conversation's amazing, because when I was watching yesterday for the first ever time in my life, I felt a bit scared of them. And I was just sort of sat there. And as you said, Chris, it's the formation on the stairs. And at that point, they haven't shot anyone. They're just walking and standing. But we all know what that means. And Janis Metz is the director of this. And I've not seen any of his other films he's done, but I don't say choreographed a massacre, but the direction of these episodes has to be credited alongside the writing and the performances. I'm going to glide by every department, hundreds of extras on a film set, the costume department that would have been making all of those, where everybody looked amazing. The action sequences, practical effects, the explosions, it was perfect. And that sounds sort of disgusting to say about a massacre on screen, but just those stormtroopers, the way they were shot, the approach. Even in episode 3, when Brasso was killed, you had that close-up of a stormtrooper with the gun up. Never showed it pulling the trigger, didn't need to show him getting shot, but you started to think, you can joke about that one, he didn't miss. But in today's episode, it's, these are faceless CGI army used to be one of the criticisms I'd see of the prequels, right? That, it's another CGI, it's faceless, but for the first time, them being faceless made them more terrifying. That although we've got an admiral smiling at innocent people being massacred, the fact we're just seeing these troopers with the guns up shooting, and it's quite eye-opening to Star Wars as a media that, I love Star Wars Rebels, as we all do, in an animated kids show, which is the roots of Star Wars as well. Of course, the stormtroopers are going to be clumsy. We joke they miss, they hit their head on the door as they go in, but that doesn't mean they always have to be like that. And it's having that ground level Star Wars story where it is us with the peaceful protesters, it is us with Cassian, whether it be in a prison cell where we're seeing people being tortured, whether it being in this plaza. The fact that they are willing to put this on screen, and the thing Andor has done for me more than anything, which sort of sounds brutal, is the concept of death in Andor is someone gets shot, they die. There's no hero slow motion moment. There's no build up. There's this person has been killed. And it's brutal because it's real. That's unfortunately what happens in real life. If anyone's been through loss in a way such as that they understand, 1 second someone's with you, 1 second they're not. And this show doing it, and again, it's wild to talk about it. It's on Star Wars, but I'm going to jump, not right at the end, but these are some of the best episodes of TV I think I've ever seen. And I know my TV background isn't the same as like film, without trying to sound arrogant, but when I look back to some of my favorite, almost impactful TV episodes of all time, I think this is going to be there for the conversation for many years to come, and will be the show I try and get as many people to watch. But that entire sequence, the build up to it with music, if you look at the first season of Andor, the first arc, you've got the metal tins being banged in sync, which is really cool. And we have the episode with the eye where you've got, the I don't want to call them the villagers, the religious ones coming to their settlement to see this thing happening. The finale, which upon a rewatch last month, I think is one of my favorite sequences, the funeral march, the music in that, to have the crowd singing. At first it's about the galaxy is watching, which is the cruelest of ironies. We'll get to media representation a bit. Oh my, wouldn't you love to be at uni doing like literature stuff again and discussing Andor? Like the amount of essays people could write is scary. But this one in particular, that the galaxy wasn't really watching, and we'll get to Coruscant later, but it was by all means a massacre. And I'm not going to call it the Ghorman national anthem, but when they start to turn into the song, it's powerful. It's so powerful watching it, because that then builds further into they're going to get massacres in a couple of moments. And
are you trying to suggest that a government full of people elected to help your country might, not look at a massacre happening somewhere else because it doesn't involve them, even if it does directly involve them? This
is it. And if there's one camera rolling, which it can, I will drop a real one. The mobile phone with the ambulance recently that's happened in Palestine is that one of the most like vile things I think I've read, and there's a lot of vile things I've seen, but a blind eye being turned by everyone. It's real today. It was, as it is with that story, it was real 60, 70 years ago. It would have been real hundreds of years ago, where obviously there's no cameras, but the OV's phrase is history is written by the winners. And I like that. I don't want to say we as a society progressed, but certainly us, compared to different generations, having more access to worldwide things, to more historic things, we get to find more about those things in history that were written by winners, but we get to find out why that happened and who else was involved. And
the problem with that as well is that, we evolve, how we get information evolves, but unfortunately, propaganda evolves too.
Oh yeah.
And that goes side by side, and that's what was really interesting about this whole arc, is the way that they really broke down the tools of imperialism. It's not simply just taking over; it's making lies. It's implanting them into it's not just implying them into the news cycle in terms of the news broadcast, but it's putting it into just the normal mundane shite you watch on telly every day. And it's Good Coruscant. Which, by the way, fantastic.
Star Wars Sessions called it. What's the women's show?
Loose Women.
So that's it. Star Wars Sessions called it Coruscant Loose Women or something like that, which is a great little comparison that Cyril's mum was watching. But we get to see the narratives of here's the capital, here's the other people, and they're saying all this about Ghorman. They're saying these insurgents, they're saying these terrorists, when we know as viewers they aren't, but that's what they believe in that galaxy, and it all leads up to the massacre. Following that, we'll get to obviously Mothma and Coruscant after, which is worthy of the same conversation. But the way in which that entire sequence built with tension, the fact that the Empire, I don't want to say all clearly, but the fact that no protester started that. They were waiting for someone to start that, they didn't. So the sniper on the roof had to bringing in the young kids with the faces on display to put out there, not as bait, but for them to be false martyrs for their narrative structures.
And they're green as well. they don't quite know how to work as
The
a group
rookies.
yet. So
what
they're gamed up.
Yeah, like the captain said, like these aren't people. Like you can't put them out here, and it's if you don't do it, you'll be in the Imperial basement for the rest of your life, and it's just quite harrowing. It's weird to talk about because I've been so excited to talk about it, but it's also still difficult to talk about it because it is so real that these things have and do happen.
And I think to give credit to what you were saying about it being like one of the best bits of TV ever, I think it's not going to change that much in terms of it's very timeless. We talk about, what's happening in Palestine right now, but I also saw what happened in Ireland, what still happens, We have, what people like Kneecap being censored right now. You could talk about a million things going on right now that, pay attention to, but the media would rather focus on 3 guys doing like in a band than talk about any of the atrocities going on. And that's the sort of thing that I'm glad we get to see in Star Wars, because it's shining a light on the different aspects of the way they just ground out people and take over. And it's just, it made me feel just really uncomfortable. And I think what you kind of mentioned as well, which I really loved and appreciated, was the focus on the gore as like a culture. And they really flashed out. I'm really glad they got all these French actors to play the gore, because they're incredible. Like, they were all amazing, and they developed an entirely new language, which they, according on the Declassified, they said that they built this language around like French. I think it's like verbiage. It's not actually like, it doesn't translate into anything. It's just like a whole new language, but it's the way that French would be spoken. So the French actors all got to learn it like pretty well, to the point where they said they got so happy, like they were so like comfortable in it, they started talking to each other in gore, which is like incredible.
Because I understand French, and my experience watching that, I was like, wow, this is what it's like to not understand French, because it sounds exact. It's like it sounds exactly like French, but they're not speaking French. I don't know what is incredible. And I think the one thing I want to say about the fact that they are so French coded, like I actually really appreciated that they made that planet basically the French Resistance. And you mentioned the song that they're singing. I don't know if Tony Gilroy has said this. I assume it's an homage to Casablanca, because I don't know if you've seen that movie. There is an incredible scene when they're in the restaurant, and they all start singing La Marseillaise, kind of in defiance of the Nazi officers who have come into this place. And the sort of context of that scene is that a lot of people in that singing that song were actual refugees, Jewish refugees, French Jewish refugees. And so when they're singing La Marseillaise, they're singing it for real. They're singing for like, we are being defiant, and we have so much pride and love for our country. And so I feel like, I don't know if Tony Gilroy has said this. I feel like that has to be a reference to that, because the way that they sing it and the fact that it is so French coded, I feel like it's meant to be that they're actually singing La Marseillaise. And I think for me, the point of that, of why it really works, is that I think for Western audiences, like, everybody agrees the French Resistance was doing the right thing, right? And I think to show us a French resistant coded thing, but also to show us, like, through the Ghorman Massacre and also the wider context of Andor, putting it in that context of going, okay, if you can understand that the French Resistance were doing the right thing, why are you not applying that to other situations? Do you see how they operated? If you look at the history of the French Resistance, like, look at how they operated and what they did, and like, collectively everyone in the West agrees that the French Resistance were the heroes. And then, okay, well, why can't we expand that definition to other situations? And so I think, like, I kind of think that's like a secret genius move from Tony Gilroy, to be like, we're making them French.
It was also, for me, like, that was the moment I started crying, was the singing, because that was,
I
think that sums it up, right? It's like they start off with a sort of aggressive, if I use my imperial propaganda voice, aggressive messaging of, like, where the galaxy is watching, like they're naturally angry, right? They have every right to be angry, and then they just turn it into this beautiful, heart-wrenching plea and celebration of their culture, right? Like their national anthem. It's what represents their planet. It's them summed up. It's a defiant, like I said, it's a defiant, beautiful vocal, and the way they mentioned it as well in the Declassified. Again, you got to watch it. The way they did the audio, so like they purposely built it out so like in one distance someone's starting to sing it, and then you can hear a little bit in the background someone's starting to sing it, and then gradually they all come together to start singing. And that's what got me. That's when I was like, okay, this is devastating, and I know it's just gonna keep building and building. And yeah, the way that they did the whole massacre scene was just horrifying. Again, it doesn't matter what culture you're from. You're French, Irish, you're from Palestine, you're from anywhere around the world. We've all seen those like aspects and those events unfold, and the way that like the imperialistic viewpoint takes over. And with the KX droids, again, you said about the stormtroopers being scary. I think I've never been so scared of the KX droids.
Oh my god, because K2SO is my favorite droid. I feel very attached to him. And I genuinely, like, just on a Star Wars fan level, I found it so painful watching him do that stuff, because like that's my baby. Like he's like killing people and it's really upsetting.
Yeah.
It's so not even brutal, but Charlie might just tell me I'm wrong. Am I right in saying that after the Clone Wars, in canon terms, the Empire essentially shut down making droids or like weaponizing droids, but then it's like, but we're going to create our own security droids who are murderers? Like I forgot the name of the character, but the first, they get at the door, they kick the barricade, takes about 10 people out. But then the daughter of the leader, the way he just clamps, because I watched it again today, he doesn't just pick her up and throws it, he clamps into her back to then throw. And it was just horrific. And I don't want to be like, you need to put the massacre in Massacre, but so many shows, so many films would show you a couple of shots of people being killed, would show some incidents, and then cut to like an outside and move ahead for an hour in its bodies or something. But to show okay, we've done a bit here. Now let's bring in the droids. Now let's do this. Let's block off the barricades and show them waiting there with the guns out to start shooting. It was a horrific watch, and I think that's what, not the series needs, that's the wrong words, but I think Star Wars has needed this. And we've spoke about in other episodes that I know it's easier said that, in the Disney era, the Empire has been better. Obviously, they've got the benefit of live action TV shows, unlike pre-2012. But the Empire has felt like an imperial regime for the first time. Andor has done so much work in pushing that forward. I'll even give credit to like the Mandalorian era, because we're getting the remnants of this, this Empire regime, trying to bring it back. Obviously, we know where it goes with the sequels, but these episodes are how, when people say, the galaxy's in turmoil, or, this rebel legion's building, we're seeing how they're building. We're seeing why people want to oppose them. We're seeing their land being taken from them, their shops, and just once it, I don't want to say bleeds out into the streets, but they don't get out the plaza. And it's like, great, we've got the plaza, we're safe. It's, oh no, they're still coming after us, and they're still absolutely annihilating us one by one, whoever we can get to. The KX droids are a big part of that, and I guess we can say that leads into K2's origin, which, is it weird to say I love that? I know there's a comic origin, and Phil will be watching this, who said last week he'll be gutted if they change it. I don't know the comic origin, but the moment we saw Cyril go into that room with the six that just turn and stare, I was sort of shitting myself like, I wouldn't want to have been in that room. Even if they're not going to do anything, the one that just doesn't break eye contact, I don't know if that's meant
K2,
to be.
I feel like.
That's what I was like. I was thinking, like, is that's got to be K2, right? The one with the eye contact has to be K2. I was like, or is it a twitchy security droid? And I don't need this question answered. Was the Empire's plan going to be for them to murder the staff in there first? Maybe, like, could that have been part of the scheme? Probably not. But the fact that we don't see anyone.
The way I viewed that scene was that when Cyril was put in there with the other like lower class Imperials, it was just like you're as good as a droid, right? Like you're just all mindless robots that are just doing your task as told. And then he realizes that, and he's like, "Oh, okay, this is what I am now." And I think you're like, I agree. Like, obviously, Andor is a very political show, and it takes things very seriously. I do think, however, though, that Star Wars is always, inherently political. There was a very weird post on Blue Sky tonight by this person who was like, the original trilogy was never political. It's politics for 8-year-olds. And I was like, not really. Like yes, you can argue like, oh, to the extent like they show certain things, like yeah, but also like the Death Star is a weapon of mass destruction. They in the New Hope itself, they shut down the only democracy standing. It's not a very working. It's not a democracy that's working well, but they shut down the Senate. He kidnaps a politician, tortures her, and then makes her watch her planet get, and her whole culture get destroyed. Like I think a problem with Star Wars, especially the older stuff, is that because we've watched it so many times and then we distill it through pop culture, right? We kind of forget the original intentions. If you're in 1977 and you're watching Alderaan blow up, you're not going to say, "Oh, that was a comedic little bit, wasn't it?" It's horrific. Like people have just been murdered. So I think it's interesting, and it's the same with the prequels, right? The amount of posts I've seen this year where people have been like,
tariffs.
I was like, "Oh yeah, the Phantom sucks. This would never happen." And it's like, "Oh god, there's a war about to happen because of tariffs." Like this is the stupidest thing, but it's true. Like this stuff does, have a political base.
Well,
George Lucas. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I think you might have just been able. You're about to say what I'm about to say. Well, the whole famous thing is that George Lucas made Star Wars because he wanted to make Apocalypse Now from the viewpoint of the Viet Cong, and the studio were like, "No." So he was like, "Well, I'm gonna make Star Wars then, and I'm gonna make the rebels. The Viet Cong are gonna be the rebels, and the Empire, the American Empire." And I think there's like in the first draft, right? It's just in the script to be like, by the way, the rebels are the Viet Cong. Just heads up. Anyways, here's Star Wars. And I think that's the thing is like, but because of the way that, well, I don't know, because the studio system hasn't really changed, but I think maybe creators have gotten a bit more smart about how to present politics within kind of mainstream frameworks. But I think certainly at the time, George Lucas didn't feel like he had a lot of wiggle room to be talking about the Vietnam War within a space adventure. And so I think it feels to us like a lot of the politics feel diluted in a way that people miss it, right?
Yeah.
But I think you can't deny that they're there. And I think what's fantastic about Andor is that I don't think it's doing anything different, right? I think it's going back to the source. I think Tony Gilroy is aware of this origin of Star Wars, that it comes out of George Lucas's feelings about the Vietnam War, and wanting to go, well, how do we get back to that place, and how can we make it literal enough that you can't go in and deny the political aspect to it? Because if you came in saying Andor wasn't political, you would sound genuinely insane. I mean, you sound insane when you talk about saying Star Wars isn't political, but I guess people seem to be doing that and somehow getting away with it. But I think that's just what's cool about Andor. It's not a new take on Star Wars. It's the take on Star Wars. It's just you just can't deny it now. I mean, it's magnified.
Yeah, it's magnified to an it's like focus on this. It's to the point, right? Like, obviously, it's like the other Star Wars films have a wider breadth of things, like story to tell. So, but it is inherently political. And I think people that don't think like the prequels and stuff and it's political, if you thought the tariffs were bad, wait until we've got the second film, which is what pushing your limits. Wanting to have it extend your limits into office. I'm sure that won't happen in the real world with any certain person in politics. And then you have the turning it into an empire. So it'll be all good, guys. It's going to be fine.
I think there's a great interview with George Lucas and James Cameron where they're both just sat there together, like oh yeah, you've got politics. I was like, yeah, right, you've got politics in Star Wars too. And without sort of mocking Twitter too much, there's all these sort of I'll stereotype and say a lot of Americans in their probably 40s, 50s that are sat there like, what? Star Wars was about politics and we didn't know. And if you grew up with it, I don't want to say you don't know it as much. I grew up with the prequels, so I literally grew up with a Senate chamber with hundreds of senators and, tariffs being put on the Trade Federation and all these other things. I think the beauty of George Lucas' Star Wars is that Tony Gilroy gets to come in, and I'm going to give loads of praise to the prequel trilogy even more. The fact that Disney have, I don't want to say acknowledged them. Charlie, you were in Orlando in 2017, right? Did you get to go to the 40th panel?
No.
Or did you? Have you seen it though? When Hayden comes out and he gets cheered, and I always bring up the channel. It's like he's very nervous. That's his first Star Wars appearance since so far.
Well, I met him at that convention.
Of course you did, and that was the first.
I was at this. I just remembered. I was at this.
Oh, really?
When he came out, and everyone was like, "Wah!" Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the moment, 2017. That before that point, you weren't allowed to talk about the prequels. You weren't allowed to say the prequels are great. They weren't making merch of the prequels. They weren't. We'll make a throwaway gag in The Force Awakens. Do you want me to get a clone army? It was that time where the prequels weren't cool, but that moment felt like that was the day when Disney, not cashed in, but that was the day when Disney or Lucasfilm, whoever you want to say, was like, okay, the prequels are legit. Like, I'm not saying you were wrong for 5 years, but Celebration 2013 when they were on the stage, like, yeah, and we're going to have less CGI and more sets, and people cheered. And they're like, we're not going to have as much politics, and people cheered. When, without getting into a sequel conversation, the lack of politics is one of my few major issues. But Andor is so politically open to the point that if we don't have George Lucas's prequels, I don't even think we have Mon Mothma's character arc for 2 seasons. She's been on Coruscant up to the final batch of episodes of season 2. The planet that George Lucas ensured was part of that opening trilogy. And if we segue, or do we want to segue past the massacre for Mothma now, or do we want to talk about Cyril's death? What would work?
I think it would be very funny if we just skip Cyril's death.
Oh, I will say it is the thumbnail.
Who? Who are you talking about?
That's my reaction.
I loved the fight. I'll give it this. Like, the fight choreography, it felt like a real fight. Not that I've been in them, but it just felt one guy who just wants to kill the other person, and the other guy doesn't have a clue what's going on. Is just trying to survive. It felt. I saw an interview with Kyle Soloway. He said they actually had to cut it down. Apparently, they'd rehearsed it for I think five days, which is quite long for a fight sequence, and without sort of mocking him as an individual. And how do you end his character arc with the person he's obsessed with saying, who are you? Someone he saw once 3 years ago that's never crossed his mind from the day after that. Whereas everyone spent his entire life living, breathing, and thinking about. And there's a lot of people who are like this in real life, which kind of makes that scarier. That there's so many different types of obsession, but this sort of I blame you for my entire life's downfall, and you mean nothing. It's not just the Thanos meme, but it kind of is. And the hesitation to which he then gets killed, it was. And it wasn't a heroic. It wasn't let's show someone running in slow motion to save Cassian. It was just bang, gone. And I think it worked. And I don't want to call him a tragic character, but he ends up being one of the characters where I don't want to say what could have been, because he's a terrible person, as he kept reminding us every few episodes. But yeah, I think he goes out in the right way that he should go out. I don't think he needed to be past Ghorman. I think he needed to die there. Again, I'm assuming we'll see Dedra next week. Sam on the channel had a great idea. Clarisse, I know you've seen it, so don't say yes or no, but he was saying a great idea would be if they send Dedra to the Death Star at the end of the series to be stationed there, or just something like that would be remarkable. But I'll give Kyle solid credit. I'm not spoken, but I think he's been great across the 2 seasons. I think he's been one of the most interesting characters. One of the more unique ones that, again, hasn't felt like it's been in Star Wars. And I don't think we'll get characters like that written in Star Wars again, just because of the ideas and concepts for the show.
Yeah, I think he's such a great example of when a character, it's sad without being tragic. It's like seeing it die, it just made me feel sad. I was like, well, depressing life for him to live, and then he just died.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like, you don't feel bad for him. You don't go, oh, and it's not even you're so right. It's not even this sort of like, oh God, what could have been, because he really like made the bed and then lay in it. But I think that there's nothing like fuck yeah about him dying. You just go, oh God, okay.
It's a Greek tragedy, right? Like it's
but then it's sort of not a tragedy, because you go, well, you made that happen to yourself, because you could have just left it.
Exactly, but it's like it's that moment of realization where it's like, I've spent literally years focusing on this person, and he has no idea what, like, all this anger that he's consumed was just a waste of time, because it meant nothing ultimately. And I think it's tragic, but also it's very funny.
Yeah, it's funny as well. Like, I couldn't imagine being that guy. Like, there's no one, not like no one I'm obsessed with. That I've got to clarify that first. But to have that much hate on one individual for years, maybe in like sports terms, sure. But Charlie Howard Webb, you know what we both think. But there's like, putting that into a real world scenario is just wild, and there will be so many people like that in real life too, that have built up these ideas of people, what they've done, they've ruined this, they've ruined that, and shot in the head, gone. Let's move on.
Also, Denise Goff was talking about, and again, I want to give credit to Carl Soller, who was incredible. He does incredible acting with his eyes alone. There's a lot of sequences in the show where he doesn't speak, but he like delivers monologues with his eyes. It's incredible. Like, he's such good like facial acting. Like, when he's just like the moment when he chokes out, like, oh God, there actually is some emotion there. Which is so funny, because I remember I was talking to a few people about this, like when they keep showing the relationship between him and Dedra.
Oh, it's so weird.
That kiss this week, and it's like so like it's so dishonest. The actual kiss, you're like, ugh. I kind of like the bit where they're just staring at each other. Like, I can't tell if they have like the most boring missionary sex in the dark, or if they're like they turn the lights off, but they do like the little nose rub thing for like an hour.
I
vote freaky but boring.
Yeah, I was going to say that there'd be some weird, like, we want to do some weird experiments that aren't going to work.
Yeah, like disciplinary stuff, but like no one's having fun, and it's not upset, and it's like,
and they don't want fun either, which would be even more sort of terrifying.
Yeah.
At Celebration, I think Carl Soller said that he calls her mummy or mother, which I think makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
she's such a great actress as well. Like, to play someone that she has like a physical performance for the entirety of her character. Like, if you ever see her in an interview, she just looks so normal. And then whenever she's on screen stage, I don't know what she's doing with her nose. It's obviously not prosthetic, but she just has this like Trunchbull-esque physical appearance.
Well, it's a mask. It's like the stiff, like sort of like pulling the Imperial. Like, she's literally just pulling that outfit down, like, tight and
every time,
and that's
sorry, I should say, whenever Anton Lesser pops on screen and he's like, Dedra, like, you're like not incompetent, but he's like, Dedra, you're flustered. I love Admiral Partagaz. I'm sorry, but
he's the MVP. I said this. I was like, anytime I watch a show or movie and Anton Lesser appears in it, I know it's going to be like 10 out of 10. I don't care. It could be the worst film, TV show I've ever seen in my life. But if Anton Lesser appears and just goes, "Physics, please," I'm like, this is my. I don't know if you ever watched Wolf Hall, but he's just like incredible in that. And him in this is like he's like the best snidey little shit.
Proper thespian.
And that's what you want.
Star Wars admirals and hierarchy, British, like. So I won't get into the Mandalorian conversation, but I hate all the American. It sounds really racist, but it's not intended. All the American officers, and it's like SNL cameos. Like, there's a place for it, I get it, but I'm just sat there like, go get an evil British stage actor that's going to do such a great job. And I love that, not to just hype up the UK crews because of, let's put tariffs on an industry you can't put tariffs on, but there's a reason they're all shooting here. It's not just tax benefits; it's a higher reason. But we have the best crews, we have the best actors. yes, we have the best everything. I will get patriotic about our film industry. And Anton Lesser is a superb example in a show like this.
What's that quote he said last week, which was just perfection? It was like oh God, I'm trying to think what it was.
Is it the "It's a Gift" one?
No, it's the one where he's like about your enthusiasm. Tamper your enthusiasm or something along those lines.
He's just the ISB stuff's every single time they pop up, it's like brilliant. An evil board meeting, I'm in. I never thought I'd say that before, but give me boring admin jobs into these guys. I just love to listen to them. And you can probably tell it's written that way, but I'm only slightly conscious of the time. It's across 10 o'clock here. Shall we talk some Coruscant? Because there is we've had the Massacre, but there is a 9th episode, which is the aftermath, I guess we could call it, to the Ghorman Massacre, which is, I mean, we're just going to call it Mon Mothma's episode, isn't it? It's so well earned. So just for people curious at home, Tony Gilroy spoke today about a K2SO mist horror origin. The original episode 9 concept was for a ship with K2 in it to make its way to Yavin, which would just be horror him killing all the crew. That sounds cool, but the thing he really let slip was Mon Mothma's escaping Coruscant was originally going to be episode 10, not episode 9, which I thought was really interesting because the sequence of having her Senate speech build up in the immediate aftermath to Ghorman, I think works so well. But where I'm sort of praising where this episode goes is bringing in Luthen, who, very absent on screen for the first 2 episodes. I was half expecting him to rock up in Ghorman just out of nowhere, like in a shadow watching or smiling, but he really isn't. You could picture it like Cassian just looks up in a corridor and he's just there with like a hood over his head.
With that wig on.
I would say he's not even wigging in episode 9, is he? Like he's straight into the short hair, which I started to think, is this going to be his March episode? But we get to really see, I guess we can say, like his web of spies, that he has friends everywhere, which is not only the code name, but legitimately the whole episode is Luthen had someone somewhere, and however many years of him scheming and planning and looking out for Mon Mothma was all nailed in one of the most tense episodes so far. That we've just had this like disastrous massacre, which is really like tough to watch. I'll be honest, it sort of left me just a bit, in a zoned out space. To then get a political episode, which I absolutely love, because Star Wars politics is one of my favorite things. I love seeing the Senate building. I love seeing these characters. Without jumping too far ahead, what do you guys think leading up to Mon Mothma's speech about the whole, they've bugged her room, her assistant is actually another one of Luthen's spies? Did you enjoy that in a kind of nice opening way before we get to the main event bit?
Yeah, I'm going to come at this from a perspective of being a massive Rebels fan. And for those who don't know, there's an episode in season 3 where the Rebels crew, which would be part of the Phoenix Squadron, which is a different Rebel cell at this point, have to go and save Mon Mothma after she's done a speech about the Ghorman Massacre. And we see this character who's with Mon Mothma, who's like her assistant, who, like, for the last few years, every time I watch that episode, he seems very, like, up himself a little bit and a little bit, like, very, like, nervous about stuff. Like, don't go too close to her, like, and stuff like that. And I always thought, he seems like a bit of a dude. He seems a bit uptight. I get that she's in trouble, but chill out. But now that I know his whole backstory of the whole, he's been working for Luthen for 2 years and he's been stressed out. He's a proper spy. It makes that experience like so different. I'm like, I get you now, dude. I appreciate it. Like he's a real one. He actually does care about Mon. And I really like that. Like she's got some friends there. I was surprised about how the story unfolded straight away at the Senate, because I always assumed, I don't know why in my own head, but I always assumed there would be a sequence or a scene where Mon has to make that decision with her family first before leaving, which has me maybe a little bit more scared for them in the final 3 episodes of this season, because I feel like they wouldn't just leave it there, and I'm sure there's going to be repercussions for her family, which, and I'm very intrigued by how they deal with her husband, Perrin, because it's very interesting. Like in the books, I think they mentioned that he used to be like sort of like this lefty, like young, youthful guy who was like pretty cool, and he was put in the marriage with Mon against both of their wills, but they kind of got on together and they're like pretty cool. And he's just been weighed down by the whole like imperialistic aspect of it, and he's scared, and so his attitude is actually just enjoy life and not get involved too much, which of course to Mon is abhorrent. But it'd be interesting to see how his response is to the whole thing. Like, I'd like to think that he's good and would actually defend her, even if it leads to his death. But who knows? I'm very intrigued to see where they go with that.
I can't. I know, so I'm not going to say anything.
That's fine.
I'm just going to keep quiet because I can't do any predicting because it's been predicted.
I'm glad Charlie brought it because I sort of had sort of two questions heading into the season. Like, one, what's going to happen to her family? Because we knew it was going to open the wedding because you could work out as a wedding in the trailers. And the second one was going to be how are they going to get her out? And I've been under the idea that she'll eventually turn. They'll do something to her family, and that will be the crux that gets her. Again, speculate sensibly is the correct Star Wars term, I believe. And I was like, yeah, Vel's going to die. Her family's going to die. She's going to have nothing left, which is going to make her the rebellion. And it's kind of like, oh no, everyone's alive still, but we're getting you out of here right now. I'd hope Luthen's had a plan, but I don't know that. But my other question heading into this series...
Well Luthen's plan would be kill them.
Yeah.
Kill them all!
Two more loose ends. I always wondered, and this isn't me criticizing animated shows because it's really not, but whenever I'd read like on Wikipedia or anything like Mon Mothma gave a speech against Palpatine in the Senate, and that's what created the rebellion, I was always just sat there like, how on earth is she going to make a speech about Palpatine in the Imperial Senate when it's like this fascist regime? Like, how would that ever happen and her just get into a rebellion? So I've been really curious for the whole season, like, are they going to like try and get her out of there? Like, is something else going to be the plan? And I loved the episode that it wasn't just the build up to the speech. It wasn't just the speech. We got the aftermath, the escape plan, which was nailed. But the speech itself, I kind of want to talk about. Tony Gilroy did a great interview saying how he will never release the Star Wars Andor scripts because of AI, which is kind of, I don't want to say a cop out. I actually really respect it. At the same time, if the Succession scripts are online, you can please do the Andor scripts. Like, I would just buy a book of the Andor monologues if someone ever wanted to release that officially, because it felt like Mon Mothma's monologue, her speech, her political moment in this felt like it's been building up to for years. It felt earned on screen. The performance from Genevieve O'Reilly, the editing, which I don't think sort of spoke about with these shows sometimes, it's having all the different situations going on around her. You've got the ISB trying to shut it down that can't. You've got Luthen's spies elsewhere. You've got the driver still. Everything in play with her speech just added to how powerful it was. And then where it does end, and that, to say the word genocide, I felt was incredibly powerful.
Twice.
Not just because of what's happening now, yet twice. And it's a word that I think many studios wouldn't want any writer or director to allow someone to say on camera, especially with current, even in a post-production, you can imagine somewhere an exec is worried about that being said. And I don't want to say I'm grateful it's been said, because that sounds so peculiar to say you're grateful for it being said, but I think it shows that the quality of the writing, that Tony Gilroy is not afraid to put that in there, that he is saying it for what it is, and that's what it is in the context of the show. Kathleen Kennedy, who does not get enough credit for when the Star Wars stuff is very good. She's just the punch bag to some when things aren't working, but when things are working, it's never, ever her fault, apparently, but it is when it's not. She would have obviously allowed this to be put in there, as would have other execs. So I'm not sitting here like praising a studio system because Disney aren't that type of company, but I didn't think we'd get the speech we did. And I think that will be looked at as a crux of Andor and of Star Wars as a medium. When people talk about politics in Star Wars now, I think this will be one of the speeches that every single person goes to for the coming years.
Yeah, I think you're right about the what's been fantastic about Gilroy's contribution has just been like the clarity of just calling thing. I think you alluded to it, just having a character say the word rape in a Star Wars show. I remember what I was like, really like, because we've obviously had so much stuff in the past that has like alluded to sexual assault within the Star Wars universe. There's literally like sex slaves in this we know about that. It's been there from the beginning. But I think someone to just have that word, and I think that's true of the word genocide as well, it's again this idea of like, George Lucas made this world because he wanted to talk about our world through fantasy and through stories, but he wanted to talk about our world, and I think those are our words and they describe our world and what is happening in our world. And I think just to have that, well, I think that's also the great part of her speech. I mean, so I have to be like, I watched this episode 3 weeks ago, so like to me it's what really stuck out like 3 weeks down the line is when she's talking about like the greatest casualty is truth.
I've got the quote here.
Yeah, if you want to read it out, because I am so sorry. I just remember something. She said something like that, and it was really good.
I won't do my Mon Mothma. The difference between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Of all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil.
Yeah, like, which I think that's explains like the power of using those, of calling things what they are. I think to do it in a fictional space and to have like, I don't know what's the right word for it. Just like, I think just like the strength of conviction to go, well, this is what's happened. This is what's happened in this fictional space. And we're going to use this word because we're all fucking adults in the room, right? And we could call it what it is. I think when you then pull that into the context outside of what Star Wars is, when we're trying to have conversations about our world, and those are also 2 words that people never want to use to say, well, no, we're all fucking adults in the room when we, as exactly as she said, objective reality, we call things for what they are. So I think it's like, it's sort of amazing both in the context of Star Wars and like outside of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's it rang so true to me as well, the whole thing about, like, I think when people are like, oh yeah, this series is very cool, it's very political, it's great, I'm like, true, but also it's like, what does it instir in you? What does it like make you feel? And I think the biggest like congratulatory message I can give to Tony Gilroy is that it really like, I feel like we're all of a certain like political view, or like how we feel about stuff, and it just made me feel more and more determined to like just speak out and be, because we're all angry about things, and I feel like it really stirred in me, because a lot of the stuff about journalism and the way these structures have been imposed, and you see it a lot recently where there's a lot of cowardice and a lot of spines have been lost because it's easier to just put up with things, and it's easier to not tell the truth because it could cause problems. Oh God, good heavens! If we have to have a debate or a difficult conversation, it's easier just to nod along and go along with stuff. And I feel like the idea of having this strong character like Mon Mothma who can speak up for the truth, and from a really lame Star Wars fan answer, the way I view these episodes, and I just want to shout out as well to Benjamin Bratt, who plays Bell, who does an incredible job and a thankless job of having to step into those shoes, because I know that he got a lot of flack from people that don't understand how recasting works.
Also, Benjamin Bratt. Like, I just feel like I was like, oh, I was so excited to see Benjamin Bratt. I sort of forgot that he was playing Jimmy Smits' character. Yeah. Not because I forgot that that's his character. I was just so excited to see him, if that makes sense. I sort of was not worrying about the recasting aspect.
No. All you should care about with that character is that if that person, and I think my co-host Nikki summed it up best, he seems like the sort of person who would raise Leia. That's all you need to have.
Yeah.
That's the perfect like respect I can give for that character. But seeing Belle and Mon, to me, always makes me emotional because they're fighting for obviously like for Alderaan and for Chandrila and the rebellion, but they're also fighting for their friend who is not there, who is Padme. And I always feel like that their interactions with them, she's always part of their soul. She was there at the beginning, like she was part of the first seeds of the rebellion in those deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith, which are canon, gone to a book somewhere. And yeah, so I always take that like emotional bit with me as well. So I always get a little bit like, you know, can you imagine having Natalie Portman in that Senate? She would completely they'd have to drag her out. Also, like,
and she'd look great too. Her outfit would be
good.
Crazy good.
She'd have like 5 different outfit changes during the same speech. One funny thing, well, not funny, but it made me laugh a little bit, was when Mon had finished her speech and everyone was starting to be like, traitor, she's disgraced, she's gonna get...
Yep.
When the Senate pod went back into its space, it reminded me of the Homer Simpson meme of the walking into the bush.
Yeah, because she's not afraid. She's just sort of standing there as it's reversing.
Like a truck.
Yeah. Stand clear. Mon Mothma bursting.
I kind of love it as well. Like, even Bail Organa, we spoke about, the fact that there are leaks in his, I'm going to get you out, I'm going to get you there safe, and he's not got the right people to do that mission either. That we spent a lot of season 2 doubting Luthen. Not his morals, but has he crossed line? Has he gone too far? Is he in his own ego? But this episode is like Luthen's validation that if he hadn't have made every single decision, every single call he ever did, Mon Mothma doesn't get out of that Senate alive. And I think I'm so excited to rewatch Rogue One in a few weeks. I've not seen it since just before season 1 started airing. Tyler, I texted yesterday, I'm like, it's like the scene at Dodgeball when he's like got the donut that he can't eat. I'm like, that's every time I look at Rogue One on the shelf. Came out of cinemas again last year, and I was like, I can't do it. I'm in between Andor seasons. Any moment with Mon Mothma is going to have a different gravitas moving on with the series, and it answered that not silly question from me, but how did she get out of there? Okay, like you can't just walk out of that building after saying what's been said, and the fact that she got to meet Andor for the first time in canon at that the series has really, they've been the 2 protagonists of the show, and I love that. And I'm not saying they'll ever rename it, no, but if it had been called Andor and Mothma, it would have sounded stupid, but that's kind of what the show's been. It's been these 2 separate characters that journeys come together of the penultimate episodes, and maybe we'll see them together next week, maybe we won't, but, she's the mother of the rebellion. That's what I've always called her. And I don't mean mother in the slay term. I also mean it in the, like, legitimate, the great moment.
She is mother.
Yeah, she is. I love Genevieve O'Reilly as well. She's lovely in all her interviews. And again, to do a deleted scene 20 years ago, and you end up playing that character in animated form in a glorified cameo in a film, then a leading role in one of the best drama series that series has ever had. What an incredible, like, not opportunity, but there's justice for having a deleted scene, and then there's what Mon Mothma has gone on to be. I also want to shout out the dead driver, who I know everyone's hated him across 2 seasons, but just the point blank execution of Andor. Not that he has any regrets in doing it, but I love the idea that when we get to Rogue One, Cassian spoke so much about, reluctantly we've killed for the rebellion. Even though we didn't know this driver, she knew he's ISB, but to him it's a target that has to be eradicated, and he does the right thing. And you see the gulf for class that she's had, even though she is in Coruscant, she's a senator, she's horrified at seeing 2 people being shot, whereas Cassian's like, I was literally in a massacre yesterday. I've still got like blood on my chin from it. I loved the escape sequence. I just thought it was a really, I don't want to say fun way to do it, but it just felt so thrilling. Just having these ragtag to get out of the Senate, and it felt monumental that this is the last time we are going to see this politician in this political climate until after, not Revenge of the Sith, until after Return of the Jedi. I don't know if anyone else thought a bit deeply about that, or if that's just me being weird of Star Wars politics.
No, I mean, it's a different type of politics, right? She's still like, it's like in her mind, she's still fighting for the people. But yeah, from that point forward, it's state to restore. Like she says in the speech in Rebels afterwards, it's to restore. She's left the Empire, but she's there to restore the Republic, which is the core goal. I will say about the driver as well. It was nice seeing that actor again. I think I just had his name up. It's Lee Ross, who my only criticism with Andor season 2. It's a very small criticism.
Can I guess something?
Okay.
You're about to say it's because they didn't bring back Trevor.
Well, that's kind of part of it.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's true. It's kind of part of it. There's not enough EastEnders actors this series, which is very frustrating. Like I said, you had Trevor, he was Little Mo's ex in EastEnders, and Lee Ross, who was in EastEnders as well. So we had a few little nice little, like sort of lower tier TV British actors who are like really good at their job, but don't get the experience to like expand themselves, and then they get to see them in Star Wars. And you're like, yeah.
It's like American shows. What's that? What was Joey from Friends in Fictionally in Friends? Days of Our Lives, is it? Like obviously I don't know American tally like the daytime stuff, but they'll have like a Days of Our Lives actor pop up in another show, and all the Americans are like, oh my god, is this? I'm sat there like I don't know what this is, and I'm guessing that's like these any like British soap star that they won't know who Little Mo is, like Big Mo, sorry. No. Different conversation. They'll know it's Gary Oldman's sister. And everyone in Britain's like, wait, what? Big Mo's Gary Oldman's sister?
It's crazy. And I think as well, like it's just like I'm like, oh, they're in Doctor Who. Oh, they're in Doctor Who. Oh, they're in Doctor Who. That's the joy of British telly is playing the Doctor Who game. Which I'm trying to think of this episode if there was a bunch of Doctor Who people. Maybe a few. The top of the head, but yeah. I'm interested to see how many more Rogue One people we do see next week because, like you mentioned, we had the Alan Tudyk.
And Melshi returns. Duncan Powell.
The king himself.
I'm desperate, so I don't know if Star Wars Explained has done it yet. On his gun, there's engravings in the Star Wars language, and I never ever do the translations because someone has already done it for me online. But there's something engraved on his gun, which is obviously how he gets picked by Vel. I don't know if it will mean anything.
I think it's one of the guns from Narkina 5.
I was wondering if it might just say like Narkina engraved, but someone somewhere has done a translation, I'm sure, to find out. But this is it, like these minor characters from a spin-off film almost 10 years ago have popped up in character arcs in this drama series, and they're more than welcomed into it. They're like, you're buzzing to see them, that we knew we'd get Melshi back. And as we head into the final 3 episodes next week, we're only 1 year away from Rogue One. But ending this episode with the rebirth of K2, I loved it. It kind of felt quite scary as well. Like they didn't just, wire him up, press a button, and he works. It was like a Dr. Frankenstein approach where
he's literally Frankenstein because they give him a new brain, the cerebral cortex.
I didn't think of that way. There we go. That's explained that. But just the way in which, it's not, again, it's the electric jugging everywhere. Like it felt really intense, even though we know as viewers the outcome. There will be people watching this show who don't know Rogue One, who maybe haven't seen Rogue One, and I'd love to get some of their thoughts. I've potentially got a guinea pig at work when the girls wants to watch Star Wars for the first time, and I've told her like do 1 to 3 and then do Kenobi and Andor, and don't talk to me until after them because I'm curious. But it's a lovely little way to end it. I know obviously some people would be good to be having had K2 for so many episodes. I think 2 year of in storyline still works, but what kind of hit me most with the K2 part at the end was the day he lost Bix was the day he gained K2, and to me that means something. I don't know if anyone else has put that together, but that was my moment where I thought, oh my god, he gets K2 on that day.
We've all been there.
K2 is his girlfriend, so
we've all been there when you break up with your partner, and then your boys are there to help you through it, or your girls.
He's in the jungle. He's got some guys go and get like a dog to be like a batch of a dog. He's got his droid, and they'll be like bunking together on like Black Ops missions.
It's funny you were saying it's the rebuff of K2SO because I've got 2 points. The first one is, Clarisse, you don't have to feel bad about K2 killing people because, like you said, the cerebral cortex is a different brain. So it's a bit like if you can't really blame Frankenstein's monster for killing people beforehand if they did kill people, that person, because it's the body, not necessarily the brain.
He did kill a lot of people after though.
They
And I
deserve
support
it.
all of it.
Yeah, fascists don't count as people.
This is a different story though.
And what's really, and the other second point I was going to make as well is that I felt like it was because the show is like a continual like growth for Andor, but I felt like this was like another rebirth for Cassian. And what made it very poignant for me was that the first time we see him, the youngest we see him, is sort of like alone in the jungle, and he's rescued by like family. And then next time we see him at the end of this episode, he's running alone in the jungle, and then he meets his new family, which is K2. Which, you know, if you're gonna have family, it has to be a sassy British droid. And that's what I was really intrigued by the tone of it, because obviously, like, I am actually one of the people that really loves Rogue One. It's my favorite of the films from Disney. And I think what's so fun about that film is that the tone is like very different to Andor, but not too like crazily different. So, but there is like a sort of a leap in it, like the tone of it. And then as soon as K2 starts speaking, I'm like, this is perfect. This feels exactly how it should do. Like it's just the sorry if I hurt you, but if you didn't, I would like you to lower the gun. it's just spot on. You don't feel like you're being like mistreated or like mishandled. It's like just perfect. Yeah,
I love that. Sorry, I would say you can tell Alan Tudyk's like so delighted to be saying that line as well. Even though you can't see it.
At Celebration, he got the biggest round of applause from everyone. Like the standing ovation was like 5 minutes long.
I love K2 so much. I guess as someone who's seen the other, I will say I think they did an incredible job of preserving who K2 is, and like he's very funny in this show, but at no point does it feel tonally weird.
No,
with
exactly.
What else? So yeah, so that little glimpse that we've seen, like here, I mean, I feel like it's not a spoiler to say K2 will return. He's in more of the show.
Well, we know the one scene
what they do with
trailer.
him. Yeah, and I think it's always been obvious he was going to do stuff. But everything that they do in the next 3 episodes with him, like I thought it was so well balanced because, like, yeah, he gets some absolutely hysterical lines, very in the spirit of K2. But yeah, at no point does it feel like, you know, when it's like sometimes with these sorts of stories, it's like, okay, now we have to have the goofy bit where everyone's going to be silly for 2 minutes and then going to go back to being serious. It's like they managed to nail it, so it's like he can just say something and then we immediately go back to Andor, the TV show. And it's great. I loved K2 so much.
It's the perfect way to end this icon, I think, because it really does then jump into that. How are we getting to Rogue One? And I know I keep saying that, like it's the destination. That's the beauty of the show, is that, you know, I always go back to the Dagon Arts. I was like, wait, we're going to get a spin-off of the spin-off, and it's going to be 5 seasons long. And now we're sort of, I fully respect it's not 5 seasons as well. Like, I love the fact that Tony and Digger basically came, I think they were shooting the Arcaniac and were like, yeah, we can't do 5 seasons. We'll do 2. I love that it came out that way, and they've really, you know, we're a week away from ending, which is kind of sad. I didn't book the day off work just for Star Wars, but I sort of did, like the old days, because I will watch this one live. And thankfully, there's a press screening the same night, so it's like now I'm justified in watching it at 2 a.m. because I've got to get to London for the evening, so I'll binge it, sleep, and then do the afternoon. That's going to be Tonal Whiplash from Andor to Mission Impossible, same day. That's heavy. I'm excited.
Spies.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if Tom Cruise pops up in the last episode of Andor, then Christ Almighty, something's gone very well there. I don't think it'll happen for whatever reason. But if we're sort of slowly rounding up, I'm going to give my final thoughts on this 3-episode arc, which is incredibly difficult to do still. But I'm not going to be the guy that says the best Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back. But I will absolutely say there is a pinnacle of Star Wars, and Star Wars can be so many different things. Star Wars can be politics, Star Wars can be action, it can be lightsabers, it can be animated cartoons, it can be comedies. This sits at the top of the mountain with many other projects. But these 3 episodes in particular, I think, is accumulation of the previous 21 that have come before it. Everything's led to this moment, and it's been an incredibly deep conversation with you both. So I have to thank you both immediately for staying on for sort of 2 hours anyway. But it's a very difficult 3 episodes to talk about, if I'm quite honest, with it being Star Wars. And I think they're my favorite episodes of Star Wars TV, which is a really, pointless statistic to add on top of that. But yeah, final thoughts I will add. Not that accolades mean anything. These are the episodes for them to submit for all the Emmy categories. Again, I don't follow like TV Emmys, but if Andor is to be a Star Wars show that wins Best Drama at the Emmys, that will be celebrated for many a time. And in LA in 2027, they need to do an Andor panel with it now being over. That's my other demand, alongside the 50th anniversary and the 25th anniversary for Attack of the Clones and many other demands. But an Andor panel, please. Very well deserved. Charlie?
Yeah, you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, these episodes were, I think a pinnacle of storytelling. They are something that I think is not just perfect for the now, but potentially forever. Like, these are, like you said, like Casablanca is like one of those pieces of art where it's timeless, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily, just because it's set in World War II, like, you still relate to these characters, you still relate to the struggles, and fascism is an ever-growing horrible part of our reality, apparently. And we have to learn from that. I think the greatest compliment I can give to Andor is that not only is it a very good description and portrayal of revolution, it's also a very good guideline to, one, fight back yourself, but also to understand how imperials and imperialistic forces and fascists use their way to do things, and to bear that in mind. So this episode, this arc was incredible. Like, it was just like he says, it's a calendar moment. It's like a core element that I feel like the Ghorman Massacre is. It's the thing that unites all the different cells together. So in the galaxy, from like a canon point of view, it's a massive moment. So I feel like getting to see that done in such a serious way explains why all these different groups, no matter how much they're fighting, because even at this point, Saw Gerrera would be part of the groups. So the fact that all this stuff brings all these different people together on these different planets and different cultures just shows you like how messed up and important this whole affair was. So yeah, really great stuff. I'll keep babbling. It's really good. The Andor is just, as a show, like every single department gives 100%. You can tell like everything's just oozing with love, even if it's like costume design or the music, the acting, the writing. Everything's just gorgeous. And I don't want to like knock other stories and be like, oh well, Andor's the pinnacle, but it's definitely, it's something I'm proud that is a Star Wars story. Like, I'm proud that we've come up with this, and I'm glad that people are loving it. And I don't necessarily care if people keep watching other Star Wars stuff. Like, if it means that they get something out of it, that's all that really matters. So yeah, I'm pretty happy, and it's just, I'm just so glad to see Diego like thriving and like being happy with the story he's told, because I feel like if anyone deserves it, it's him. Like, I remember being in that 2016 panel at Rogue One in London and just seeing all those faces. And again, I know I'm in the minority, but Rogue One's my favorite out of all the new films. I adore those characters, I adore those themes, and I know that it's a very, people diminish it as a sort of like a fluffy line, like such a Disney fluffy line. But rebellions are built on hope. It hits me so hard in the core, and seeing the bellboy say it to Andor, and then Andor saying it to Jin, and then there's a scene in Rogue One, actually. I rewatched it recently, and it's the speech where they're giving it's in the council, and they're talking about like whether they should go to Scarif. And Bell is naturally like sort of like, I don't know if we should be doing this sort of thing. And then Jin says rebellion's built on hope, and you could tell that he's like, yeah, she called my bluff. That's my kind of line. I love it. Like we're going full hog on this stuff, and I think that's what we kind of need. You know, we need a little bit of fluff as well, because revolutions are not for the sane.
Drink it in, boy.
Breathe it in.
I guess my takeaway, I feel like these episodes, it just reminded me why. I mean, what I appreciate about Star Wars, but I think like sci-fi and genre pieces in general, because I think there is something about the ability to completely create the boundaries of your world means that you can speak so much more plainly than I think a lot of stuff that's set in our world is, and in a really weird way, because I think because it's fictionalized, everything is, you're able to amplify it, right? And you're able to say rebellions are built on hope, which maybe if you're making like a real historical drama, people would be like, that's weird. But I think within the context of Star Wars, it makes perfect sense, because you're also interweaving it with, the hero's journey and the sort of mythical, legendary aspect, knights versus dragons. But like putting both together, I think you can do so much with it. And I think this is a great example of it. What I've been impressed, I thought like the couple of the final episode of Fallout was amazing in that aspect of what it talked about capitalism. I thought it was brilliantly done. Parts of Doom Part 2, I mean, that's like Frank Herbert. I think it's like all of these together. When I watch them, I just feel like, God, that this to me is what storytelling can do. This is like the power of storytelling. And that I think just because it's a made up world, just because it's a magical, fantastical sci-fi world, that actually can make the message even clearer. It can make the message even more powerful, because you're drawing people into their imagination and saying, in your imagination, and like kind of putting yourself in it. That's what I love about Star Wars, is that it's always asking like, where would you be in this? What are you doing? Are you on Coruscant? Are you in Tatooine? Like, who are you in this situation? I know I would be a Mandalorian, but that's a different conversation. I think I loved this. I think it is like the best that I guess my takeaway is this is the best that Star Wars can be. This is Star Wars at its very best. This is what it can do and what kind of stories it can tell. And I'm very thankful for Tony Gilroy, everybody, for making it. Very happy to see K2SO back.
I think if I were in Star Wars, I would like to think I'd be a Jedi or some sort of heroic rebel. But I think deep down, I know that I'm that big alien from Andor season 1 that goes, "What?"
That's it.
I've never actually thought about that. I wouldn't want to be a Jedi or a Sith. I don't want to. I just want to like get on with my business. I think I'd be at pod racing a lot. I wouldn't be a gambler. I wouldn't be wealthy. I just think I'd like to go and watch a lot of pod racing, even though you can't actually see anything once they drive. It's like everyone they don't see you once you go past your corner, but
it's like F1, right?
It literally is. I was watching the ILM documentary. I know it's a separate conversation, but they brought up the F1 stuff. But yeah, like pod racing. I saw pod racing age 3. That clearly made me a fan of F1 10 years later. So it works in a funny way. But I would need to just hear the sound effect in real life. When it goes by, I can't do the great impression. But I feel like I'd end up getting drafted to be a stormtrooper, and it would have been day 1 and it was the Death Star or something. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to go well.
No.
I'm just low expectations would be the best way to
survive. You heal. Takes you about 3 years.
Oh,
then you get stationed on the Death Star too. Yeah.
As someone that's never done drugs, I would absolutely be sniffing petrol with Saw Gerrera. Sorry, that's a new one. That kick as a kid when you'd smell the petrol station. Wilman, I am all in. I don't think Saw Gerrera would let me in though.
I can make that
Yeah.
happen for you right now. Let's get the.
Yeah.
I worked at a petrol station once. You can actually smell it. I was actually half devastated. That's a different conversation. But
I think you might be Saw Gerrera.
I just need like multiple different haircuts for every other month that are just not needing to be explained to anyone. But I love Forrest Whitaker. I hope he's in the last 3 episodes. If not, I'll get to see him again whenever you watch Rogue One. Maybe we will get the origin for how he came across the Borg gullet next week. That is one of my deep line predictions. But yeah, listen.
Sorry, I'm just remembering how he says it in the movie.
Borg gullet.
Have you come here to kill me?
It's such a great. He's so easy. It's like the unannounced Bane. You know how like every guy says they can do a Bane impression and they can't. I actually think I've deluded myself into thinking that I can do a Saw Gerrera impression. It's like the Star Wars version. But Charlie and Clarisse, it's been amazing to get you both on. I'm so glad I've got you both on, and it's been this episode arc of all of them, the heaviest, I think, to have the more delicate conversations and have the laughs because we want laughs because it's Star Wars. But the floor is both yours. What are you up to? Where can the people find you? I'll update the description to get all the links in as well to social medias. Charlie, you go first, then Clarisse, and then we'll round out.
Yeah, you can follow me on Blue Sky at charlie-ashby.co.uk. And you can follow my podcast, the Imperial Senate Podcast, on all your podcast feeds. I've been away from it for a little while, but my good co-hosts Nikki and Claire have been doing some Andor discussions, which have been very cool. And we've got a little Andor discussion show called Not Another Mining Disaster, which again, I don't want to brag, but it's a great show title. So yeah, follow us on there. We've been posting a lot of stuff. We had a pretty viral Instagram, YouTube, TikTok recently of the Krennic. Don't know if you've seen our little Krennic TikTok. Did quite well. I'm pretty chuffed with that. I'll Clarisse, I got sent to you. It's fun.
I love all Krennic stuff. So that's good.
And then you can find me on Instagram at I think it's Charlie MW Ashby, and that's just about it.
So for all my writing stuff, at Clarisse Loughrey on Instagram and Blue Sky. And yeah, I'm also a co-host on a podcast, Fate to Black podcast. And I think we are going to probably do an Andor. So we haven't talked about Andor yet, so we will talk about Andor soon if you want to hear more Andor stuff. But we just generally talk about movies and sometimes TV, when we like the TV a lot.
So everybody, please follow them both. It has been amazing to discuss this with you. For everybody watching live, thank you so much for your comments. For people that are watching later, we'll reply to any comments that pop up. It's been a very busy week. It's been the 10th anniversary of the channel. I'm not going to lie, the priority has been Andor rather than the anniversary. We had The Last of Us go up on Monday, which was a lot of fun. We had Thunderbolts *, the new Avengers review go up on Sunday as well. We're allowed to call it that now, which still feels really strange.
Wait, what?
And there'll be a lot more reviews.
Oh.
Sorry, it's because you're on Yavin 4. You've not seen the news. Marvel told everyone after 3 days. We'll have Mission Impossible reviews.
Avoid.
Yeah.
Remember
so
anything.
everyone go watch Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is really good. I really liked it. What else is coming up? Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise videos. There will be a Rogue One video after the Andor finale. And the Andor final discussion we'll do, I think, is going to be next Thursday. I believe I'm in London next Wednesday, but I haven't been confirmed, so I can't get too arrogant. But it should be next Thursday. We'll try and get a panel on for that one. It's going to be very special, the ending of the series. If you want to follow us, we announce videos, other things on our social medias. Unfortunately, we're on all of them. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and even Letterboxd, all under linktree.com/cinemasavvy. So you can follow us on there. That's going to round up for today. We've gone for over 2 hours. Thank you both so much for joining me, and we'll see you all on the next one. Take care.